The warning sirens screamed across the Mars orbital station just as Captain Dewan finished his morning coffee. He dropped the cup and ran to the command deck, his boots clanging against the metal floor. Through the massive windows, he saw them. Ships. Dozens of alien ships, each one larger than any human vessel ever built. They hung in space like dark clouds before a storm. Dewan had trained for this moment his entire career, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The alien vessels were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls seemed to absorb light, and strange symbols glowed across their surfaces. They had appeared without warning, simply materializing in human space, as if distance meant nothing to them. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all channels," his communications officer said, her voice shaking. "They want to speak with Earth's leadership. Now." Down on Earth, Admiral Hedgen stood in the United Earth Council chamber, watching the same scene on massive displays. She had served in the military for 30 years, fought in the colony wars, survived things that would have broken lesser people. But this was different. This was first contact. It was nothing like the optimistic scenarios humanity had imagined. The alien appeared on every screen, across human space simultaneously. It was tall, easily 3 meters, with a body that seemed made of living crystal. Light moved through its form in patterns that hurt to watch. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect human languages, translated by technology humanity could barely comprehend. "I am emissary of the Dominion," the being said. Its voice had no emotion, no warmth. "We have observed your species. You have achieved faster than light travel. You have established colonies beyond your home world. By galactic law, you are now subject to Dominion authority." Councillor Borum, representing the outer colonies, leaned forward in his seat. He was an older man, his face lined from years of hard work building settlements on distant worlds. "Subject to what authority? We never agreed to any galactic law," the emissary continued, as if Borum had not spoken. "The tribute requirements are standard. You will provide 40% of all industrial production, 30% of agricultural output, 100,000 human workers annually. Failure to comply will result in immediate sterilization of all human worlds." The council chamber erupted in shouting. Some members demanded to know what right these aliens had to make demands. Others called for weapons to be prepared. Ambassador Taeyang, Earth's chief diplomat, stood and raised his hands for silence. "How long do we have to consider this?" Taeyang asked, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "There is nothing to consider," the emissary replied. "This is how the galaxy functions. This is how it has functioned for 10,000 years. Lesser species pay tribute to their betters. In return, the Dominion maintains order and prevents war. You have one standard cycle to begin compliance. Refuse, and humanity will be removed from existence." The transmission ended. The alien ships remained a silent threat hanging over human space. In the hours that followed, panic spread across Earth and its colonies. People watched the news in terror. Parents held their children close. Soldiers reported to their bases knowing their weapons were useless against such power. Humanity had finally reached the stars, only to find they were small fish in a very big ocean. Director Sumin, of Earth Intelligence, worked through the night in her underground facility. She had been tracking unusual signals from deep space for months, but nobody had listened. Now she had everyone's attention. Her team compiled everything they could find about the Dominion from the limited data their probes had gathered. "Look at this," she told Admiral Hyjin during an emergency briefing. "We've scanned their ships. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. But here's what's interesting. We found records of other species who faced the same ultimatum. Every single one of them surrendered. Every single one. What happened to the ones who refused?" Hyjin asked, though she feared she knew the answer. Su-Min pulled up images of dead worlds, planets where the oceans had boiled away. Cities turned to glass. Civilizations erased so completely that only ruins remained. The Dominion doesn't make idle threats. They have the power to back up every word. The council met again in secret session. Ambassador Taeyang argued for acceptance. "We have no choice," he said. The tribute is harsh, but extinction is final. We can survive this. We can adapt. But Counselor Borum stood firm. I came from nothing, he said. I worked in the asteroid mines as a young man. I helped build the first colony on Europa with my own hands. I did not do all of that so my children could be slaves. So my grandchildren could be taken as tribute to alien masters. Noble words, another counselor said bitterly. But words won't stop those ships from burning our world. Dewan had been called down from his station to attend the meeting. As a military officer, he usually kept silent during political debates. But now he spoke. Director Suman showed me something interesting. The Dominion's last military action was 3,000 years ago. They haven't fought a real war in all that time. They don't need to. Their reputation does the work for them. What are you suggesting? Hyjin asked. I'm suggesting that nobody has ever actually tested them. Every species surrenders immediately. Maybe that's smart. Or maybe it means the Dominion has grown soft, lazy. They expect compliance because they've always received it. The room went silent. The idea was insane. Fight a galactic empire. With what? Humanity's entire fleet could probably fit inside one of those alien ships. But Hyjin was thinking. She had spent her life studying military history. She knew that sometimes the underdog won. Not through strength, but through surprise. Through doing what the enemy never expected? We tell them yes, she said slowly. We agree to their terms, but we ask for time. Time to organize our industries. Time to set up the infrastructure for tribute collection. 3 years. Maybe 4? And during that time? Bioram asked, hope flickering in his eyes. During that time, we prepare for war, Hyjin said. A war we probably can't win. A war that might destroy us. But I would rather die fighting than live on my knees. The vote was close. Many counselors were terrified of choosing extinction. But in the end, humanity made its choice. They would gamble everything on one desperate plan. They would pretend to comply while preparing to fight. Ambassador Taeyong sent the response to the Dominion. Earth accepts your terms. We request 3 years to establish proper tribute systems. We are a young species, and our infrastructure is not yet organized for such production. The emissary's response came quickly. Your compliance is noted. 3 years is acceptable. The Dominion appreciates your wisdom in accepting the natural order. As the alien fleet departed, leaving only a small monitoring station behind, humans across all worlds breathed a temporary sigh of relief. But in secret facilities across human space, the real work was beginning. Engineer Jae-hoon received orders to begin Project Exodus. Dr. Uniseo was pulled from her university to head classified research. Agent Min-ji prepared to infiltrate the alien garrison. Humanity had bought itself time. Now they had to use it. The clock was ticking toward a confrontation that would decide their fate. Would they find a way to fight an empire? Or would their defiance lead to their destruction? In her office, Admiral Hijane looked at a photo of Earth from space. That beautiful blue marble that had given birth to humanity. She would not let it become another dead world in the Dominion's collection. Whatever it took, humanity would find a way. The game had begun. Engineer Jae-hoon stood in the center of what appeared to be a massive tribute processing facility on Luna. Dominion inspectors walked through the construction site. Examining the half-built structures with their scanning devices, they seemed satisfied. What they didn't know was that every wall hid weapons. Every storage container concealed missiles. The entire facility was one giant trap. Very efficient, the Dominion inspector said, through its translation device. It was a different species than the emissary, shorter and covered in something like scales. Your species learns quickly. This will process tribute adequately. Jae-hoon smiled and nodded, playing the role of the obedient servant. Inside, his heart raced. If they discovered the truth, humanity would die today. But the aliens never looked deeper. They expected compliance, so that's what they saw. Across human space, similar deceptions played out. On Mars, agricultural stations were being built with hidden launch bays beneath the crop fields. On Europa, ice mining facilities concealed shipyards where a new type of warship was taking shape. Every human world was becoming a fortress, disguised as a factory. Dr. Unesio barely slept anymore. Her research facility was hidden 3 kilometers underground in the Australian desert. She led a team of 200 scientists working on humanity's only real hope. The Dominion's technology was superior in every way but one. Their shields had a flaw. It's like a musical note, she explained to Admiral Haijin during a secure video call. Everything has a resonant frequency. If you match it exactly, the object shakes itself apart. We found that their shields operate on a very specific energy pattern. If we can create a weapon that matches that pattern, their shields won't just fail. They'll cascade and destroy the ship from inside. How long until you have a working prototype? Haijin asked. D. Unesio rubbed her tired eyes. 6 months. Maybe less. The problem is power. We need massive energy to generate the effect. We're essentially building a weapon that sinks their shields to death. The Resonance Torpedo Project became humanity's top priority. Resources flowed to Unesio's facility from across human space. Scientists who should have been working on tribute production mysteriously disappeared into classified projects. The Dominion noticed nothing. They had never dealt with a species that would dare deceive them. Agent Min-ji had perhaps the most dangerous job of all. She worked as a liaison officer at the Dominion's monitoring station orbiting Earth every day. She smiled and served the alien overseers, bringing them reports on human compliance. Every night, she stole their data and sent it back to Earth intelligence. The aliens trusted her. Why wouldn't they? She was just another conquered species learning her place. They talked freely around her, discussing their empire's operations. Minji learned that the Dominion military was divided into rigid castes. Officers never questioned orders. Soldiers never showed initiative. Everything followed ancient protocols that hadn't changed in millennia. They're like machines, she reported to Director Sumin. Very efficient machines, but machines nonetheless. They can't adapt. They don't know how to think creatively. This information shaped humanity's war plans. If the Dominion couldn't adapt, then chaos would be humanity's greatest weapon. Unpredictability. Flexibility. All. The things that made humans frustrating in peacetime would become strengths in war. Colonel Hyenwu trained the first class of Void Reapers in a secret facility in the asteroid belt. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were specialists in boarding actions, sabotage, and psychological warfare. Each one was trained to fight in zero gravity, to breach alien ships, to cause maximum confusion with minimum force.
Ow.
The Dominion fights with fleets, Hyenwu told his troops. We'll fight with ghosts. They'll never see us coming. When they do see us, it'll be too late. His teams practiced against mock-ups of Dominion ships built from stolen intelligence data. They learned to move in the dark, to strike without warning, to disappear before the enemy could respond. Traditional military doctrines said you needed overwhelming force to win. The Void Reapers would prove that sometimes a knife in the dark was worth more than 1,000 ships. Time passed. Months became a year, then 2 years. The Dominion grew more confident in humanity's compliance. Reports showed tribute facilities rising across human worlds. Production numbers climbed steadily. Everything appeared to be going according to plan. But beneath the surface, humanity transformed itself into something the galaxy had never seen. A species preparing for total war while pretending to be defeated. Every civilian learned to fight. Every factory could switch from tribute production to weapon manufacturing in hours. Every ship, every station, every settlement had hidden defenses. Counselor Biorum visited the outer colonies, spreading hope and resolve. His speeches were officially about meeting tribute quotas, but his real message was clear to those who listened carefully. We are building something great, he would say. We are building for our future. For our children. For the day when we stand free. The Dominion observers thought he meant building for the Dominion. They didn't understand human doublespeak, but not everything went smoothly. In the second year, there was a close call. Bjorn's son Sung-ho managed a mining colony in the asteroid belt. His facility was supposedly extracting metals for tribute shipments. In reality, the entire asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with weapons. A surprise inspection nearly exposed everything. Dominion officers arrived without warning, demanding a full tour. Sung-ho had only minutes to hide the evidence. His workers scrambled to seal blast doors to cover weapon emplacements, to make the base look innocent. The inspection lasted 3 hours. The Dominion officers walked within meters of hidden missile batteries. They passed storage rooms filled with ammunition marked as mineral samples. One officer even commented on how efficient the operation seemed when they finally left. Sung-ho collapsed in his office, shaking. He sent a message to his father. "We almost lost everything today. They're getting more suspicious." The message reached Admiral Hajin. She called an emergency meeting of the military leadership. "We're running out of time," she said. "The closer we get to the tribute deadline, the more inspections we'll face. We need to accelerate our timeline." "The resonance torpedoes aren't ready for mass production," Jae-hoon reported. "We have prototypes, but we need at least 6 more months." "Then we make do with what we have," Haijin decided. "We move our timeline forward. The Dominion will come to collect their first tribute in 4 months. That's when we hit them," Dr. Unisio protested. "For months isn't enough. We'll only have a few dozen torpedoes. Against their fleet, that's nothing." "Then we make every shot count," Haijin said firmly. "We get one chance at this. One surprise? After that, they'll know we're a threat and bring their full force against us. Our first strike has to hurt them badly enough to buy us time." The meeting ended with everyone understanding the stakes. This wasn't just about military tactics anymore. This was about survival, about whether humanity would exist as a free species or be erased from history. In the final months before the tribute deadline, human space became a hive of barely controlled chaos. Ships moved constantly between worlds, officially transporting tribute goods, actually positioning military assets. Communication channels buzzed with coded messages. Families said careful goodbyes, knowing what was coming. Agent Minji sent her final report from the Dominion station. They suspect nothing. They're planning a grand ceremony for the first tribute collection. Their overseer fleet will arrive with minimal escorts. They expect a celebration of humanity's acceptance into the Dominion order. Director Sumin read the report and smiled coldly. They'll get a ceremony they'll never forget. On Earth, in the council chambers, the final vote was taken. Some counselors still argued for peace, for finding another way. But the majority stood firm. Humanity had made its choice 2 years ago. Now it was time to see it through. Ambassador Tae-yong, who had argued for compliance at the beginning, gave a speech that silenced the doubters. "I wanted peace," he said. "I wanted to save lives. But I've learned something about freedom. You can't compromise it away piece by piece. You either have it or you don't. If we give them our freedom now, we'll never get it back." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would fight. Captain Day 1 prepared his defense stations around Mars. Every weapon was ready. Every crew member knew their role. He looked at the countdown timer on his display. 3 weeks until the Dominion fleet arrived. 3 weeks until humanity's defiant answer was delivered not in words, but in fire. He thought about all the preparation, all the secrets, all the risks they'd taken. Had it been enough? Would humanity's desperation and creativity be enough to overcome the Dominion's power? There was only one way to find out. The die was cast. The game was in motion. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not like other species. That when pushed to the edge, humans didn't just survive. They fought back. The Dominion fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like predators returning to claim their prize. 12 massive capital ships, each one a floating city of weapons and power. Around them swarmed hundreds of smaller support vessels. They moved in perfect formation. It's an armada that had never known defeat. On the bridge of the flagship, the Dominion commander reviewed the tribute schedule with satisfaction. This young species had proven surprisingly cooperative. The commander was almost disappointed. It had hoped for some resistance, something to break the monotony of another peaceful collection. But no, Like all the others, humanity had learned its place. Captain Dewan watched the alien fleet approach Mars on his command display. His hands were steady despite the fear churning in his gut. Around him, his crew sat at their stations, faces pale but determined. They all knew what was about to happen. They all knew most of them probably wouldn't survive the day. "All stations report ready," his tactical officer said quietly. On Earth. Admiral Hajin stood in the war room surrounded by holographic displays showing every human, military asset in the solar system. Ships that had been hidden in the asteroid belt were moving into position. Defense platforms that had pretended to be tribute collection points were powering up their weapons. Thousands of stealth mines drifted in carefully calculated orbits. The Dominion fleet entered Mars orbit. They expected the usual ceremony. Representatives from the conquered species, heads bowed, delivering their first shipment of tribute. Instead, they received a transmission from Admiral Hajin. "This is Admiral Hajin of the United Earths Defense Force. I have a message for the Dominion." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "No." That single word echoed across every communication channel. One simple word that no species had dared to speak to the Dominion in 3,000 years. The Dominion commander was too shocked to respond immediately. This wasn't in any protocol. This wasn't supposed to happen. "You refuse compliance? Do you understand what you've done?" "We understand perfectly," Hajin replied. "You demanded our freedom. You demanded our children. You demanded we become less than we are. And we're telling you no. Humanity will not pay tribute. Humanity will not serve. If you want us, you'll have to take us." The commander's confusion turned to rage. "You are insects, challenging the void. We will make an example of you. Watch as we destroy your colonies. Watch as we turn your rebellion to ash." The Dominion flagship began charging its main weapon. Targeting the southern continent of Mars, it was supposed to be a demonstration. A strike against an uninhabited area that would break human will. The commander had done this before on other worlds. Show overwhelming force. And resistance crumbled. But the commander didn't know about Dr. Unisio's resonance torpedoes. "Fire," Daewon said calmly, from hidden launch bays across Mars orbit. 37 torpedoes streaked toward the Dominion flagship. They didn't look impressive. They were small, barely larger than fighters. The Dominion's point defense systems locked onto them confidently, preparing to swat them away like insects. Then the torpedoes. Activated, each one emitted a precise frequency matched exactly to the Dominion shield harmonics. The flagship's shields didn't just fail. They tore themselves apart from the inside, creating cascading energy waves that ripped through the ship's hull. Secondary systems exploded. Power conduits overloaded. In less than 30 seconds, the pride of the Dominion fleet was dying. The other Dominion ships watched in horror as their flagship broke apart. This wasn't possible. Their shields were impenetrable. They had been impenetrable for 10,000 years. How could this primitive species have found a weakness their own engineers had missed? Daewon didn't give them time to figure it out. All units, engage at will. Human ships emerged from hiding throughout the solar system. They were smaller than the Dominion vessels, but they were fast and maneuverable. They swarmed the enemy fleet like wolves attacking bears. Hitting hard and dodging away before the massive alien weapons could track them, the Dominion fleet tried to form their traditional battle formation, a defensive sphere that allowed all ships to support each other. But human tactics ignored tradition. Fighters zipped through gaps in their formation. Missiles came from unexpected angles. Every time the Dominion tried to target one threat, 3 more appeared. Colonel Heinwu's Void Reapers launched from hidden positions on captured asteroids. Their small assault craft were almost invisible to Dominion sensors. They attached to enemy hulls like parasites, cutting through armor and infiltrating the ships inside one Dominion cruiser. Heinwu led his team through corridors that weren't designed for combat. The aliens had never needed to defend their own ships from boarders. They had no internal security protocols. The Void Reapers moved through the vessel like ghosts, planting explosives, destroying critical systems, spreading chaos. They don't even have blast doors. One of Hyunwoo's soldiers reported in amazement. Their ships are designed like passenger vessels, not warships. That's because they've never needed to fight inside their own ships, Hyunwoo replied. Keep moving. We need to reach the engine core. The battle raged for hours. The Dominion's superior weapons could destroy human ships with single shots, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't track. Human pilots flew patterns that made no tactical sense, purely because unpredictability was their greatest advantage. They sacrificed positioning for confusion. Trading efficiency for chaos, Engineer Jae-hoon coordinated the asteroid fortress network he had. Built over 2 years of secret construction, thousands of asteroids, each one equipped with engines and weapons, each one controlled by a small human crew willing to die for their species' freedom. The asteroids didn't try to survive. They rammed Dominion ships at full acceleration, their mass and momentum cracking alien hulls that had been built to withstand energy weapons, but never physical impact. Dr. Unesio watched. From her command center on Earth, as her resonance torpedoes proved their worth, they had only she made each one count. Every shot took down shields, leaving enemy ships vulnerable to conventional weapons. The Dominion had thousands of ships across the galaxy. But in this moment, in this battle, her technological advantage was gone. Agent Min-ji was on the Dominion monitoring station when the battle started. She had been prepared for this moment. As soon as the first shots fired, she and her team of disguised agents took control of the station, seizing alien communication codes and broadcasting false orders to the Dominion fleet. Flagship to all ships. Fall back to Rally Point Delta, she transmitted, mimicking the Dominion command structure perfectly. Several alien ships, confused by the chaos and the loss of their flagship, actually obeyed, breaking formation and making themselves easy targets. The tide of battle turned clearly in humanity's favor. The Dominion fleet, which had arrived expecting submission, found itself fighting for survival. Their rigid tactics couldn't adapt to human unpredictability. Their powerful weapons couldn't hit fast-moving targets. Their impenetrable shields were useless against weapons designed to bypass them one by one. The great Dominion capital ships fell. Some were destroyed outright, torn apart by sustained fire from multiple human vessels. Others were crippled and captured, boarded by Void Reapers who overwhelmed their unprepared crews. A few tried to escape, jumping to faster-than-light speeds. But human minds damaged their engines first. 18 hours after it began, the battle ended. Of 12 Dominion capital ships, 11 were destroyed or captured. Only one escaped, limping away with critical damage and carrying news that would shake the galaxy. Humanity had defied the Dominion and won, but the victory came at terrible cost. A third of Earth's fleet was gone. Mars' surface had been struck by several weapons before the Dominion ships were neutralized, leaving massive craters and killing thousands. The Europa colony had been hit by a fleeing enemy ship, the impact devastating their underground settlements. In the war room, Admiral Haijin looked at the casualty reports with a heavy heart. 20,000 humans dead, countless wounded, several colonies damaged. And this was just the first battle. The Dominion wouldn't accept this defeat. They would return with more ships, more weapons, more determination. Dr. Unisio's voice came through on the command channel. We've captured intact Dominion vessels. My team is going through their databases now. The information here is incredible. Their entire fleet composition, their technology, their star charts. We just got access to everything. Something at least. Haijin allowed herself a moment of hope. Humanity had proven they could fight. They had proven the Dominion wasn't invincible. But could they do it again when the enemy returned in force? Captain Daewon stood among the wreckage of his defense station. Half his crew was dead. The station itself was barely functional. But they had held. They had fought an empire and survived. He looked out at space, at the debris field that had been a Dominion fleet, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Counselor Borum watched the battle footage in his office, tears streaming down his face. His son Seung-ho had survived. His asteroid mining colony had played a crucial role, their weaponized rocks destroying 2 enemy capital ships. But so many others had died. Was freedom worth this price? He thought about the alternative. Generations of humans bred for servitude, children taken as tribute, never to return. Humanity slowly ground down into obedient slaves. Yes, he decided. Freedom was worth any price across human space. People celebrated and mourned in equal measure. They had won, but the war was just beginning. The Dominion would return. Everyone knew it. The question was whether humanity could survive round 2 in the captured Dominion ships. Human scientists worked frantically to understand alien technology. Every secret they uncovered, every weakness they found, could mean the difference between survival and extinction. And in the depths of space, the lone surviving Dominion ship carried its warning back to the Empire. A message that would change everything. The impossible had happened. A tribute species had fought back. The Dominion's myth of invincibility was broken. The war for humanity's future had truly begun. The news of humanity's victory spread through the Dominion like poison through water. For 3,000 years, the Empire had maintained absolute control through fear and reputation. Now that reputation was shattered. If one species could defy them successfully, others might try the same. The Dominion's response was swift and overwhelming. They assembled a war fleet of 300 capital ships and thousands of support vessels. It was the largest military force mobilized in millennia. The Empire's leaders were clear in their intentions. Humanity would be utterly destroyed as a lesson to any other species considering rebellion. Director. Sumin sat in her intelligence center watching sensor data from deep space probes. The approaching Dominion fleet was so massive it created gravitational distortions that could be detected from light years away. "They're bringing everything," she told Admiral Heejin. "This isn't a punishment expedition. This is extermination." But Heijin had been busy in the 3 months since the first battle. Her teams had analyzed every piece of captured Dominion technology. They had cracked alien communication codes. Most important. Why? They had found something unexpected in the Dominion databases. Lists of other tributary species. Worlds that paid tribute, but secretly hated their masters. "We're not fighting this alone," Heijin announced during an emergency council meeting. She pulled up a star map showing highlighted systems. "These are species that have been waiting for someone to strike the first blow. We've made contact with their resistance movements. They're ready to join us." Agent Minji had been traveling in secret for months, using captured Dominion ships to visit other tributary worlds. She brought a simple message. The Dominion could be beaten. Humanity had proven it. Now was the time to rise up together. 23 species answered the call. Some were advanced civilizations ground down by centuries of tribute. Others were newer to the galactic stage, still remembering their freedom. All of them were angry. All of them saw an opportunity they thought would never come. When the Dominion fleet arrived at the borders of human space, they found resistance on multiple fronts. Tributary worlds across the galaxy were in open revolt. Dominion garrison forces, used to cowing unarmed populations, suddenly faced coordinated attacks. The Empire's supply lines stretched thin as they tried to respond to dozens of simultaneous crises. The Dominion commanders had never fought a war on multiple fronts. Their military doctrine was simple: concentrate overwhelming force on a single target until it surrendered. But now that doctrine was useless. They couldn't concentrate their fleet if they had to defend everywhere at once. Captain Day 1, now commanding an entire battle group, led the defense of the Sol system. Humanity had spent 3 months turning their home into a fortress. Every planet, every moon, every significant asteroid was armed and ready. The inner system was a maze of mines, missile platforms, and hidden weapons. "Let them come," Day 1 said, as the Dominion fleet entered detection range. "Every meter of space they cross will cost them." The Dominion attacked with their usual overwhelming force, expecting to crush human defenses quickly. Instead, they entered a killing field. Mines that had been drifting dormant suddenly activated, swarming enemy ships. Missile platforms hidden in asteroid fields revealed themselves and launched thousands of weapons simultaneously. Human ships didn't engage in traditional fleet battles. They hit and ran, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Engineer Jae-hoon had spent the last 3 months building his ultimate creation. The asteroid fortresses from the first battle had been impressive. What he built now was insane. Entire asteroids converted into mobile weapons platforms, each one capable of independent operation. They didn't have crews. They were controlled by artificial intelligence programmed with one directive: destroy the invaders. Thousands of these automated fortresses engaged the Dominion fleet. They rammed enemy ships at relativistic speeds. They detonated themselves in proximity to enemy formations. They didn't care about tactics or survival. They just killed, efficiently and without mercy. The Dominion fleet found itself fighting an enemy that couldn't be intimidated because it wasn't alive. You couldn't break the morale of machines. You couldn't make them surrender. You could only destroy them, and there were thousands of them, more being built every day. Dr. Unizo unveiled her second masterpiece. She called it the Cascade Generator. The resonance torpedoes had been effective but limited in number. The Cascade Generator could affect an entire enemy fleet simultaneously. It was a massive installation built on Phobos, one of Mars' moons, powered by a fusion reactor that could have supplied energy to Earth for decades. "We get one shot," Unicio explained to Admiral Haijin. "The device will burn itself out after a single use. But that one use will take down the shields of every Dominion ship within 1,000,000 kilometers." Haijin looked at the tactical situation. The Dominion fleet was advancing through the outer system, taking heavy casualties but still pushing forward through sheer numbers. They would reach Mars in days. This was humanity's chance. "Do it," she ordered. The Cascade Generator activated, releasing a pulse of energy tuned to the exact harmonic frequency of Dominion shield technology. Across the battle space, hundreds of enemy ships suddenly found their defenses gone. Human weapons that had been barely scratching shielded hulls now tore through armor. The battle turned from a grinding defensive action into a slaughter. But victory came with tragedy. A desperate Dominion commander, seeing the battle lost, deliberately rammed his disabled ship into the Phobos installation. The impact was catastrophic. The Cascade Generator was destroyed along with the colony beneath it. 5,000 people died instantly, including several members of Unicio's research team. Counselor Biorum was on Mars when Phobos exploded. He watched through his office window as the moon fragmented, debris spreading across orbital space. Somewhere in that debris were people he knew, friends, colleagues. The human cost of this war was becoming unbearable. His son, Stungho, contacted him from his asteroid base. "Father, we just lost the Europa colony. A Dominion cruiser crashed into it before dying. The entire settlement is gone. 20,000 people." Biorum closed his eyes. Europa had been one of humanity's oldest colonies. He had helped build it with his own hands 40 years ago. Now it was rubble. "Keep fighting," he told his son. "Every one of their ships we destroy is one less that can hurt someone else." Agent Minji coordinated attacks with allied species, directing strikes against Dominion supply lines and command posts. The rebellion was working. The Dominion fleet and Sol system was running low on ammunition and fuel. Their damaged ships couldn't be repaired. Their dead couldn't be replaced. Colonel Hyenwoo's Void Reapers executed their most audacious mission yet. They infiltrated the Dominion flagship while the battle raged, fought their way to the command deck, and captured the fleet admiral. Without their central command, the remaining Dominion ships fell into disarray. The siege of Sol lasted 6 months. It was the longest, bloodiest battle in human history. When it finally ended, the Dominion fleet was destroyed or scattered. But the cost was staggering. Mars was scarred by orbital bombardment. The asteroid belt colonies were devastated. Earth had been spared direct attack. But millions of humans had died defending the outer system. In the war room, Admiral Haijin looked at casualty reports and strategic assessments. They had won again. Against impossible odds, humanity and its allies had defeated a Dominion extermination fleet. But Haijin knew the truth that most people didn't want to face. The Dominion still had thousands of ships. They could build more. They could keep coming until humanity was ground to nothing. "We can't win by defense," she told her staff. "Every battle costs us more than we can afford to lose. We need to end this war, not just survive it." Director Suman brought intelligence from the captured Dominion admiral. Under interrogation, he had revealed something crucial. The Dominions for founding species were starting to fracture. They disagreed on how to handle the rebellion. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded total war. The Empire was showing cracks. "We take the war to them," Hyjin decided. "We hit their core worlds. We force them to defend their homes instead of attacking ours. And we broadcast everything we do across the galaxy. Let every tributary species see the Dominion bleeding." It was a desperate plan. An invasion of Dominion space with humanity's depleted forces seemed like suicide, but Hyjin knew they had no choice. If they stayed defensive, they would lose eventually. The only path to victory was to make the Dominion want peace more than they wanted revenge. Engineer Jae-hoon began building a new generation of ships, designed for offensive operations. Fast, heavily armed, and expendable. They didn't need to win battles. They just needed to cause enough damage to change Dominion calculations. Dr. Unesio, mourning her lost colleagues, threw herself into developing new weapons. She couldn't bring back the dead, but she could make their sacrifice meaningful by giving humanity better tools to finish this war. Captain Daewon was promoted to admiral after his defense of Marzi now commanded the combined human and allied fleet. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. But it still seemed pitifully small compared to what the Dominion could field. Counselor Bioram gave a speech that was broadcast to every human world and every allied species. Standing in front of a memorial wall listing the dead, he spoke simply and directly. "They tried to make us slaves. We said no. They tried to destroy us. We survived. Now we will show them what it means to awaken humanity's defiance. We will make them regret the day they ever demanded our tribute." The speech was propaganda, meant to maintain morale. But Bioram believed every word. His son was still fighting in the asteroid belt. His grandchildren were growing up knowing only war. If this conflict was going to steal their childhood, then he would make damn sure it bought them a future. The preparations took 2 months. Then, in a coordinated strike across multiple systems, humanity and its allies launched their counteroffensive. Dominion worlds that had known only peace for millennia suddenly found themselves under attack. And watching it all unfold, the tributary species, still under Dominion control, began to wonder, if humanity could do this, why couldn't they? The galaxy was changing. The old order was dying. And in the chaos of war, something new was being born. The Dominion core worlds had not seen war in 10,000 years. Their cities gleamed with the wealth extracted from 1,000 tributary species. Their populations lived in comfort, never questioning the system that maintained their prosperity. Then humanity came. Admiral Daewon led the Allied fleet into Dominion space like a knife thrust into soft flesh. His ships didn't engage in pitched battles when they could avoid them. Instead, they struck infrastructure. Shipyards were destroyed. Supply depots were obliterated. Communication arrays were reduced to scrap. Every target was chosen to maximize disruption while minimizing casualties. "We're not here to commit genocide," Daewon told his commanders. "We're here to make the Dominion understand that continuing this war costs them more than making peace. Hit them where it hurts, but avoid civilian targets when possible." The strategy worked better than anyone had hoped. The Dominion's founding species had grown soft from millennia of unchallenged power. When human ships appeared over their worlds, panic spread. These weren't supposed to be military targets. The war was supposed to be fought in distant systems against primitive rebels. Now the war had come home. Agent Minji's intelligence network, coordinated strikes with rebel movements inside Dominion territory. 78 tributary species had now joined the rebellion. The Dominion military was stretched impossibly thin, trying to defend everywhere at once while lacking the forces to actually do so on one Dominion world. A crystalline species that had paid tribute for 600 years rose up and seized control of their own government. On another, A species of aquatic beings sabotaged the Dominion military facilities in their oceans. Across the Empire, the careful order of millennia crumbled into chaos. Dr. Uniso had finally gotten sleep. With the war moving away from human space, she had time to recover from years of constant work. Her newest project was helping rebuild Mars and Europa. The weapons of war could be turned to tools of construction. The same engineers who built ships could rebuild colonies, but she kept one team working on weapons. The war wasn't over yet. She developed countermeasures to every new Dominion tactic. When they adapted their shields to resist resonance attacks, she found new frequencies. When they developed better point defense, she designed faster missiles. The technological race continued, but now humanity was ahead. Engineer Jaehoon received an unexpected assignment. The Allied fleet had captured a Dominion shipyard mostly intact. "Make it work for us," Admiral Hudgen ordered. "If we can build ships using their own facilities, we can sustain our offensive." Jaehoon and his team spent weeks studying alien manufacturing systems. The Dominion built ships through automation controlled by artificial intelligence, far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. But the AI was rigid, programmed to follow specific patterns. Jaehoon reprogrammed it to build what humans needed. Soon, the captured shipyard was producing hybrid vessels combining human creativity with Dominion technology. The war reached a turning point at the Battle of Central Nexus. This was the Dominion's primary coordination hub, where all military communications and strategic planning occurred. Taking it would blind the enemy fleet. Losing it would cripple the rebellion's momentum. Admiral Day 1 committed everything to this fight. 300 Allied ships against 500 Dominion defenders. The battle raged for 36 hours. Colonel Heinwu's Void Reapers led boarding actions against key facilities. Human fighters flew suicidal runs through enemy formations. Allied species contributed ships and tactics that the Dominion had never encountered. In the end, the Nexus fell. But the cost was severe. 100 Allied ships were destroyed. Thousands of personnel died. And among them was Counselor Biorum. His son Sung-Ho received the news while commanding his asteroid base. His father had insisted on being present at the battle, wanting to witness what his Defiance had created. A Dominion torpedo had struck the command ship he was observing from. There had been no survivors. Sung-Ho stared at the message for long minutes, unable to process it. His father had been the soul of the rebellion, the voice that kept people believing when everything seemed hopeless. How could he be gone? But the war didn't pause for grief. Sung-Ho had responsibilities. He had people depending on him. So he locked his pain away and kept working, just as his father would have wanted. The Dominion's leadership finally agreed to meet. The Empire's founding species had been arguing for months about how to handle the rebellion. Now, with their military shattered and their authority crumbling, they had no choice but to negotiate. Ambassador Tae-young represented humanity at the peace talks. He had argued for compliance 3 years ago, believing it was the only way to save lives. Now he sat across from beings who had once seemed like gods, and he saw them for what they really were. Tired, frightened, and desperate. "You cannot win this war," one of the Dominion leaders said. It was the same crystalline being who had delivered the original tribute ultimatum. "We have resources you cannot imagine. We can build more ships, recruit more species to our cause, fight for another 1,000 years. Taejong leaned back in his chair. "You're probably right. You could probably grind us down eventually. But how many more worlds will you lose in the process? How many more tributary species will rebel when they see we're still fighting? You demanded tribute because you said it maintained order. Look at the galaxy now. Where's your order?" The negotiations lasted weeks. The Dominion wanted to maintain some form of control. They offered reduced tribute requirements, limited autonomy, anything except full independence. But Taeyang and the Allied representatives were united in their demands. Complete sovereignty for all species, dissolution of the tribute system, and the establishment of a true galactic council where all civilizations had equal representation. "You speak of chaos," another Dominion leader argued. "Without our authority, Species will war among themselves. Pirates will rule the space lanes. Darkness will fall across the galaxy. Admiral Hejin, attending the talks as military advisor, responded, "Maybe, or maybe species are capable of governing themselves and resolving their own disputes. Maybe the only darkness here is the one you've been spreading for 10,000 years. Either way, the old system is dead. You can accept that peacefully, or we can keep fighting until you have no choice." The Dominion leaders conferred among themselves. They could see the strategic reality. Their military was broken. Their tributary species were in revolt. Their own populations were questioning the system for the first time in millennia. They could fight on and watch their empire collapse in fire. Or they could negotiate an end that preserved something of their civilization. They chose survival. The Treaty of Free Worlds was signed 8 months after the war began. The Dominion would retain its core systems, but would release all tributary species. A new galactic council would be established with representatives from all member civilizations. Disputes would be resolved through negotiation and arbitration, not threats and force. The Age of Empires was over. 5 years later, the galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Director Sumin had transformed her intelligence network into something called the Galactic Mediation Service. When conflicts arose between species, her teams intervened early, preventing violence through information and diplomacy. It wasn't perfect, but it worked more often than not. Engineer Jaehoon led a massive rebuilding program. Worlds damaged in the war received aid from multiple species. The former Dominion shipyards were converted to produce civilian vessels, merchant ships, and exploration craft. The same facilities that had built instruments of oppression, created tools of trade and discovery. Dr. Unisio had finally left weapons research behind. She taught at the new Academy of Sciences on Mars, training the next generation of human and alien scientists. Her students came from dozens of species, learning to work together to solve problems that affected the entire galaxy. Captain Daewon was no longer a warrior. He had retired from military service and now taught at the Academy of Free Worlds. Also on Mars, young officers from across the galaxy came to learn from the human who had helped defeat an empire. But mostly, he taught them how to avoid needing to fight in the first place. Colonel Mills' Oid Reapers had evolved into the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. When crises erupted that required military intervention, his teams responded. But they were just as likely to deliver relief supplies as to conduct combat operations. The galaxy was far from perfect, but it was learning. Agent Minji traveled constantly, mediating disputes and building relationships between former enemies. She had discovered a talent for diplomacy that her years of espionage had developed. Some conflicts still erupted into violence, but most were resolved peacefully, which would have been impossible under the old system. Ambassador Tae-young served as the first
Secretary General of the Galactic Council.
It was a position with more responsibility than power, which suited him perfectly. The Council had no authority to give orders to member species. It could only coordinate, mediate, and facilitate cooperation. Some called this weak leadership. Taeyong called it Fredo.